Your Creative Push, episode 45.
It was just doubt. It was like a crippling amount of doubt. Should I be putting this much pen to paper? Should I be going down this road?
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Adam Gaines. Adam was a staff writer on NBC's drama, State of Affairs, and his work on the FX drama, The Bridge, included co-writing the penultimate episode of the second and final season. He published the ebook Mixtape, a collection of one-act plays available as a free download on iBooks, Amazon, and Barnes & Noble, and recently he released a sequel called Fire Sale, available on the same platforms. On the feature side, his script Negative is currently in production, directed by Joshua Caldwell and starring Katia Winter and Simon Quarterman. And he's set to make his featured directorial debut on the indie Prepaid, which he also wrote. Now, that is a lot going on, Adam. Can you maybe tell me what I missed in that intro and give us a peek into your personal life?
Sure. In the freelance world that I think a lot of people that guest on this show are in, you have to spin, 8 plates to make the price of 1 plate. So it's a lot of things going on because you never quite know what's going to stick or what's going to become your next way to pay rent. And also because as a writer, I like to think that I can write over, 3 or 4 mediums. If there's dialogue in there for me to manipulate, then I'm going to give it a try. And as far as the personal life, I came out here 8.5, almost 9 years ago from Jersey. And you'll see as we go on through the interview and the episode, the personal life and the professional life kind of blur a lot in terms of my intense focus for this stuff. So there is no favorite sports team. There is no stamp collecting hobby, so to speak of. Most of my hobbies include watching movies, reading about them, staying up on the blogs, that kind of stuff. And I guess the fun fact would be hip hop. I've loved hip hop my entire life. I listen to rap music constantly while I'm writing. I go to as many concerts and shows as I can. And that is my outlet. That is my 2-3 hour break from the day when I'm pretending that I'm moonlighting in another world, just listening and studying that stuff.
I love that. And yeah, I'm from just outside of Philly, so don't worry about the sports teams because we don't have anything to cheer about these days. So you're not missing anything there.
Yeah, it's just not where my focus has ever been.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I found that as you get more and more focused on, creative passions and stuff like that, it does kind of take over and you start to not miss the stuff that you used to like. Like I used to love sitting and watching Netflix all day, but I don't really even miss it that much. Like now that I'm really deep into like podcasting and writing and all that.
Right. And less time for the pleasures.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Just making new pleasures.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to your first or maybe one of your first creative moments and tell us that story?
Yes, we still have them back somewhere in the closet, I think, in Jersey. But when I was 5 or 6, the thing I liked to do was I would fold a piece of paper in half, draw a bunch of stick figures, and then call my parents into the kitchen and tell them a story. And it was called Our Man. I can't tell you what his powers were. He appeared to have a cape and could shoot stuff out of his eyes like Superman and seemed to be like in space or on some planet. And then he had a bunch of characters and spin-offs and sidekicks, and they were all just different letters of the alphabet before the word man. So then like R-Man led to V-Man and D-Man. And I can't tell you really much about it. I don't remember the stories per se, but it was very clear from a very early age that I was interested in some kind of storytelling. And I don't, by the way, draw. I've never done that since, but I guess before I knew many words, it was just easier to draw a bunch of stick figures and then just orally tell my parents what they were doing.
That sounds like the next movie idea.
Yeah, and my mom can never, ever, she knows this, can never, ever throw them out or it'll be World War III.
Yeah, I think that when you're a kid, it's really easy to get through, all the kind of creative resistances. I don't think any of the resistances are kind of built up. What were some things that, since you were a kid, start to kind of hold you back with your creation, and how do you kind of get through them?
I think, like, as we're talking about, like, blurring between the personal and professional life, I think that insane, intense focus that I had at a young age, by 11, 5 or 6 years after Our Man, I'd kind of decided I wanted to become a screenwriter after seeing a movie and really kind of putting the pieces together. And I think like in middle school and high school and even in college when I was already majoring in what I ultimately would do as a profession, it was just doubt. It was like a crippling amount of doubt that like this same blinders that I had on that other people didn't have on at like an early age made me second guess like, should I be putting this much pen to paper? Should I be going down this road? Like, why not grab a brochure about law school? Like, how come everyone else is kind of still wandering a little bit more aimlessly or still so undecided? And it was definitely, especially in my small suburban New Jersey town, not the norm to be so focused at such a young age and such a singular path on one very highly specific, lofty, dream job-esque career. And so I think like being aware enough to know like this is a little weird presented its own like set of doubt, and doubt then became, I could say would lead to resistance.
And then what did you do to get kind of through that doubt?
I think, well, my parents were very big in high school on like prove to us that this is what you want to do. So it was like summer camps and filmmaking workshops and, like basically like proving to them that like this is the only thing I want to do and here is why. And then in doing that stuff and then going to Barnes and Noble every week and getting the how-to screenwriting books from like the early 90s that were like all the rage and like reading those after my homework every night and stuff. And like actually starting to like figure out the screenplay page and like start to feel comfortable in telling a story in such a like rigid, but yet, fulfilling kind of way. That I just started to, I think, really more like trust in like my own instinct and know like, yeah, this is starting to feel right. And like, we're just going to keep playing this out until somebody, says no, and we'll just keep playing it out. And then obviously getting into school for it in, then all of a sudden became a little bit more like vindicated, like, oh, he's onto something. He knows what he's doing. So.
Sure. So Sid Fields, I guess you read.
Oh yeah. All of them.
What would you suggest? Because I took a screenwriting course in college, and one of the things was we had to write a full feature film, which I would never show to anybody. Like it's a really hard thing to do, to kind of translate, especially if you're a writer of fiction or nonfiction or just long form writing. To translate that into a movie and tighten it up, as they say. What kind of suggestions would you give to somebody who maybe wants to just kind of dabble in it, who wants to just kind of try their hand in it?
I would say just as important, if not more important, than reading like the 5 or 6 big how-to screenwriting books, which I guess people don't really do as much anymore. It sort of was like a trend that I think went away.
Yeah.
Is go read like the 10 of your favorite movies. Go read the screenplay for it. Like start getting familiar in the form and the format, because it is so specific that like, just look at your own personal top 10, whatever those movies are, and try to go out, whether it's online or at a library or whatever, try to go out and get the screenplay to them and start to like do a little like script to screen comparison. And I think that would be like the more hobby or, like treading water or dipping your toe into it kind of way to figure it out. It's probably more important than, 3-act structure and all of that stuff for the person who wants to just kind of see if it's something they would take to.
Yeah, I agree. Just kind of absorb all the material that you can.
Yeah. And by the way, even some of the bad movies too, you can learn, they always say that too, you can learn just as much from a bad movie as you can a good movie. So even if you're like the guy who's like, oh, I only like the guilty pleasure B movie stuff, go get those screenplays. You'll learn just as much as the Shawshanks and the Good Will Huntings of the world as well.
Sure. What's your favorite bad movie?
Favorite bad movie? Man.
I don't know if you had one on the top of your head or not.
Tremors.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, as a kid.
Yeah. It's funny going back and watching like movies, even bad movies as a kid, and just seeing like how they don't even worse don't hold up now. It can ruin good movies for you too.
Yeah. But yeah, I had a Tremors poster. I loved Tremors. I don't know necessarily how well it holds up, but yeah, Tremors was great. And I don't even to this day I don't write even sci-fi and also that was like a sci-fi comedy mashup thing. I don't write comedy or sci-fi, but as a kid I really liked that movie.
That's awesome. Could you maybe tell us the story of your worst moment or your hardest time, like when resistance really like kicked your ass? Yeah,
I would have to say, again, following the trajectory of this story, I would have to say it was moving out to LA, which was always the plan. It was baked in inherently when you want to follow this career. But to do it at 21, 5 weeks after graduation, moving 3,000 miles from friends and family. And you have to understand too, the reason why I'm like considering it the worst moment is like, okay, in my small suburban New Jersey town, there was like a graduating class of like 140 kids. I'm the only one that wants to do this thing. That's cool. Makes you feel special, whatever. Then you go to New York to school, and now you're in a room with 30 other people that want to do exactly what you do. Okay, fine. You can still handle that. But then you move to LA, and all of a sudden, the bus drops off on the hour, every hour, 50 more people that want to do what you're doing. And everywhere you go and you turn is everybody wants to do what you're doing. And you have to find a way to stand out. You have to, I had just come right after school. I had a conservatory training at NYU Tisch. So I had written a lot. I had the practice. I had, maybe not my 10,000 hours, but I was getting close to them. But it was more like, okay, all of that stuff was the practice stuff. All of those features have to be thrown out. I'm not going to come out here and start peddling those around. I have to start from scratch, build, throw out the old laptop, get a new laptop, and like I'd already kind of thought what my voice was going to be, but like really specify what is it that's going to make me stand out. Because you can literally hear the bus doors open every hour, and you just know like the competition is so fierce out here that that first year out here, forget the obvious things of where do I live, how do I make friends, how do I start my social life over at 21, not knowing a single person, how do I make rent, all of that stuff, hard too, not downplaying that. But then on top of that, that first year, like, what do I write to stand out? What story do I pick? And what format should it be in? And how specifically close should it be to my voice? And I would say that first year to 2 years was the worst in terms of like probably the least amount I've ever written, even though I just moved out here to do this for hopefully the rest of my life. But it was just a lot of false starts and a lot of like, a lot of pressure of like, what's the next thing? And this has got to feel right. And, yeah.
And do you think the reason that you didn't write that much is because you were like thinking too much about it? Or do you think that...
Oh, I think that's probably always the reason with me.
Yeah,
I definitely always get in my own head. But I just think also it was a lot of, life change on top of life change. And also just now being like, putting my money where my mouth is. Like I said, I was going to do this my whole life. Then I'm here, 2 bags, one-way plane ticket. And then it's like, it just got very real. And then of course, all the extenuating circumstances, the other things are there, we'll get into it later in the conversation, I'm sure, but like balancing like, okay, how much time is spent trying to secure a day job versus how much time is spent trying to write the great American screenplay? Where should your focus be in terms of like going on job interviews to, be the janitor at your favorite production company versus like, having creative conversations with, a future collaborator. And so it's a high wire act for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that too. I think a lot of people have jobs that have nothing to do with, their actual creative passions. It's just kind of a thing that they do to make money. I think people can definitely relate, especially with, you trying to find a janitorial job at the production company or whatever.
Yeah. And then you have the extra hurdle of even that stuff is fierce competition because there's too many people out here and because it's so overpopulated with people trying to do the exact same thing that you would think like, oh, I graduated, this prestigious school with this amount of honors. So, I'm surely I could be qualified to clean the toilets here. And they're like, no, in fact, you're not. You're on a waiting list 18 months out with people, actually 30 times more qualified with you that are happy to do this job just because of what it will mean.
Yeah. Sounds like an epidemic.
Yeah. It's a good way to describe it.
On the flip side, could you take us back to your best or most triumphant creative moment?
I think it would have to be when the day job and the dream job finally met for the first time, which was in 2014. So in the TV writers' rooms, there's this really highly coveted day job called writer's assistant. And it's not actually an assistant job. You sit in the writer's room, which is as depicted on TV, a room with very few windows and many whiteboards with, 8 to 12 writers like yourself, and you break out the season and then the episode and then the scenes of the TV season of your series. And I had been doing that on 4 or 5 different shows. And as writer's assistant, your job is to take the notes as these 8 to 12 writers talk about story. And so if you're not good at it, it becomes like court stenographer type job. And if you're good at it, you can kind of parlay it into like a junior staff writer position where maybe they'll hand you a piece of an outline, or maybe they'll ask you to take a crack at a scene, or even look to you in the room to be like, hey, what do you think? Should the butler kill him with the candlestick or the knife, or that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And you get to vote and have a voice in the room. So I'd been doing that for a while. That was how I was earning a living, and that was how I was pursuing the craft. And then finally in 2014, I was able to put down the laptop in a writer's room and actually become a staff writer after pursuing this for, I guess 7.5, 8 years at that point. And had 15 glorious weeks on a TV show, getting to write and I already had the experience because I had spent the last 4 or 5 years in the exact same rooms, just not getting paid the same as those people and not having the exact same responsibilities as those people. But I was definitely more than ready and very qualified at that point to then, basically stay right where I was staying, but just not have to take as many notes and get to participate at a greater level. And then, of course, with that comes getting into the Writers Guild of America, which is the union out here for screenwriting, and, getting that card in the mail with the acceptance letter and feeling like vindicated and like, oh, wait, I'm not crazy. And, yes, this is just the beginning of the journey and I have so much more to do, believe me. But just like clearing that first plateau and taking 10 minutes to just take a breath and say, oh, wow, I got to tier 1. I got to the first plateau, and I can take, 10 minutes and now start working on the next phase.
That's very cool, man. Congratulations too.
Thank you.
I also wanted to talk about Mixtape and Fire Sale. Could you tell us about what they are and why you did that? Yeah.
And to me, your whole vibe about like resistance and defeating resistance and pushing through, that to me is why I reached out to you and why this whole thing came about, is because like those things came out of not waiting for green lights and creating your own opportunities. Specifically in my world, I was in a writer's room on a cable drama, and it was a very eclectic room, and I was a writer's assistant, and I was noticing that you had a lot of different people come through the door, walks of life, sitting around this table. Not all of them were feature and TV writers. It was a very eclectic room, which happens a lot in cable, to get a lot of different perspective and voices on a show. And I thought to myself, if I have to get hot in another lane to get noticed for what I've been wanting to do since I was 11, as we talked about, then that's what I'll do. And so I'd always been writing one-act plays on the side. I'd gone to school for both playwriting and screenwriting, and I think that dialogue is one of the things that I'm stronger at in terms of my skill set and my toolbox. And so I decided, again, merging the hip hop love, I decided to take a page out of a rapper's book, and I was like, let me go put out free content on the internet in the hopes of landing a job or attracting representation or even just starting to build a fan base. And so the first collection came out in 2013, and it was 6 one-act plays, and I designed it to be very short, to be read as a TV sample. So I'm a drama writer, so those scripts are about 60 to 65 pages. It would be a sample of mine, and that's supposed to be read in about an hour. So I designed the collection of one-act plays to be read in about an hour and to be used as a TV sample to say, here are different kinds of dialogue, different kind of character situations that I can do, and take a look. And it had the effect that I wanted it to. I started to get noticed, and it was funny because I had to go and pretend to be a playwright for about 6 months in this town, and play up my New York background, which I had never done any theater in New York, and play up some of these other things that I had, kind of had passions for, but was not really what I was focused on by any means. I was mostly writing features, little indie micro budget feature movies, and broader TV pilots that, could be dramas that would run for 5 seasons. I wasn't thinking about playwriting, and I wasn't thinking about, small character study pieces. And so I published that. Agents came along, things started to happen. And then the reason why there's a sequel is because I noticed the download numbers were more than just Hollywood. It was more than just, signing with an agency and then that person blasting it out to 50 people to get me 25 meetings. The numbers were way beyond that. And also I left my email address at the back of the collection, and I was getting contacted by small colleges to be like, hey, we found this, we want to use it in our directing workshop class. Could we have the amateur rights? Or we want to take this monologue from it and put it up in our showcase at the end of the year. Is that cool? And of course, every time I'd write back and be like, yes, of course, that's cool. And I think because it was free, or maybe because there's not a lot of content in this world out on like an Amazon or iTunes type platforms, I'm really not sure. But I think people were maybe like, oh, I need a monologue for the next day. And they were drunk at night and Googling free theater, and my thing would come up. But whatever it was, I started to notice that the downloads were getting into like, a lot. And so I thought, okay, well, the first one was really for the industry. What if I gear a second one towards the rest of the country, the people, whoever it is that found the first one, and try to get them back for the second one and try to monetize the skill, right? That's what all the artists that you have on your show want to do. Like everyone, people aren't just doing this for their closet or to put in their garage. I mean, you're trying to get people to see it, and you're trying to make a little bit of money from it. So I was like, let's go back to the people that went around the first time and say, okay, here's 6 new one acts, brand new content, and this time come back and pay 99 cents and see if putting up a paywall like that, a small, marginal paywall, could get those people to come back. And so that's what we're just trying to do right now. And so it just came out 3 months ago, Fire Sale, and 3 months ago today, actually. It was out December 1st, and today's March 1st, and it's going really well. It's getting a good response, and trying to do more with this one, more publicity, spreading it directly to campuses and targeting, people in undergrad or grad drama schools who need material to work on. And, Shakespeare, nothing wrong with him, big fan. Do that 1 week, and then maybe next week use my thing, and it's just something to have in the rotation as a material to do scene work with, or to put on in your class, or to dissect and break down. And so this time going after those, and trying to build up a following, start a brand, be known for something, and then be able to use that brand recognition of some kind and a small following to then hopefully, in the greater scheme of things, parlay that back into film and TV, and be able to walk into a small financier and say, hey, I now have, let's make up a number, 100,000 people that tune in to me when I send a tweet or when I put out a one-act play. If you give me, a very small budget, then I can, try to guarantee that these 100,000 people will download that movie if we throw it up on their, Time Warner, on their VOD cable screen. And so, that's where I'm not there yet by any means, but that's where you kind of want to then drive those fans and those followers, and that hopefully cultivate a following so that I could eventually get them back to and steer them back into what I really want to do, which is film and TV.
It's just such an inspiring story. I love so many elements of that. Like, first of all, the fact that you were, gracious to give it away for free and just kind of see what happens. I think that's just a really good mindset to have. And yeah, people will start following you. And the other great thing about that is the fact that it's free gets a lot more eyes on it, and you never know of those people who are looking for it for free will remember you or will have something to contribute to you. It's kind of like just like putting yourself out there as well.
Yeah, and I'm so glad I did it. I was hesitant for a little bit, and I'm just so glad I pushed the button and launched it, because so many things have come from it. Not just the obvious ones that we've already spoken about, but like you said, you never know. Someone read Mixtape and optioned one of them into a short film last year that was made. And, that
cool.
That was like so unexpected. And, now of course I want that again. Now with the new collection, I'm like walking around town being like waving the new collection, being like, who wants one? Who wants one? Like, come on, let's option some more. Like, you immediately want more of that. But like, what, again, in the humble beginnings of the 2013, the first one that Mixtape came out, if you had told me that someone was going to read it and want to make one into a short film, I would have, laughed at you at the time. And now, of course, that's all I want to have, for that to happen again.
So cool. And where can people find both those things?
Mixtape, they're both available on all the same platforms: Amazon, iTunes, and Barnes & Noble. And Mixtape is free and will always be free. And Fire Sale is available for 99 cents and will always be 99 cents. So
very cool.
Check out Mixtape, and if you like what you read after that hour and you want one more hour of content by me, then maybe give up the 99 cents and try it again with the new collection.
Very cool. And that'll also be linked up at yourcreativepush.com/Adam Gaines. That's GAINES. So you have a lot of things going on, as we've already discussed. What's kind of your formula for like balancing your time?
it's a constant struggle, as you can probably imagine. I like to go tell people I write every day, but that isn't true. In a perfect world, I can give you the dream scenario where I do write every day, but that's not as interesting for your podcast. I will say this though, I work on my brand and my one-man operation and my business every day. So sometimes that is spending too much time trying to make rent money for that month. Sometimes that is, the global catch-all of producing, whether that's dealing with the person who did the cover for Fire Sale, which came out great, but, had to be gone back and forth, and you tell the person what you want, and, like you're working on your brand and then discussing it with the publisher about when it's coming out. For for example, from Fire Sale, or it's emailing with your representation, or it's going to a meeting and taking, in Hollywood, everyone loves to, set you up on generals. So it's like someone reads something of yours and then you go and you spend an hour with them and you spend half that time talking about yourself and they spend half the time talking about what that company does. And then you shake hands and you hope that one day you work together on something.
Right.
And so that's a big part of the day. And LA is an expansive place. So you're driving all over town, meeting with people and making new connections and networking. And so every day something is going on. And then hopefully on the good days, you're also carving out 5 hours. That's at least what I try to hit my minimum, 4 to 5 hours, being creative and turning off the Wi-Fi and putting pen to paper and writing something new, or rewriting something, or dusting off something old, or repurposing something and saying, oh, you know what? That didn't necessarily work as a TV pilot, but I know 2 weeks from now I have a meeting with a digital company. And so maybe this can be broken down into 8-minute scripted webisodes for YouTube. And so let me see and practice that pitch so that when I have that meeting, I know I can speak articulately and elegantly about that project.
So it's juggling time as well as juggling work at the same time.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then trying to be creative, and then trying not to be jealous and bitter. And in LA out here, there's something deadline.com, which is like this very comprehensive news website that has everything that's going on in LA, from, casting notices to the latest pilot to who has an overall deal. And I am, of course, like everyone else in this town, is glued to it. But it can get very bitter, and you're like, well, wait, how come my project didn't sell, and how come I haven't been on this yet, or when will I get to premiere something at this level of a film festival? And so it's like trying to then like shut all that out. That's why I say turn off the Wi-Fi and just like go back to doing like what what I've always liked to do, which is come up with cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It could be easy to stew in that kind of jealousy or envy of other people, but so it is important to shut that off, both like physically with the Wi-Fi and just kind of mentally, and just concentrate on yourself.
Yeah, it is. It's an extra layer to balance for sure.
Do you have a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you draw inspiration from, and that maybe we could too?
Well, if you're interested in screenwriting, I would definitely read Hollywood Animal. It's the memoir by Joe Esterhaz. He's the guy that wrote Basic Instinct and Jagged Edge and Showgirls. And it's this really big book, and it's about being he's from Hungary. So he's about being an immigrant moving to, I think it was Ohio, growing up there. But then it's also about his first 10 years out here in the business, and it kind of cuts back and forth between his childhood and his heyday when he was selling $1 million scripts every week. And it's a fascinating read. It's really, really good. And so, I'd probably throw that out there. And then for a movie, I would have to give it to Scream, because Scream is the movie I watched when I was 11 that made me want to become a writer. And so every couple of years when I'm feeling a little bit, blue and not too happy with things or the pace things are going and aren't happening as fast as I would like them to, you kind of pop in Scream and just like remember the day I discovered it and the day and like kind of the reason why I want to do this, even though, again, just like Tremors, I have no interest in making horror movies, but yet this was a very inspirational touchstone movie for me at a certain point. So yeah, I would say those two things.
Yeah, for me too. Scream is one of my favorite movies. It's one of the smartest written movies, I think.
Oh yeah, and it's so self-aware. Yeah. Being 11 years old and watching that and saying, they're in a horror movie talking about a horror movie.
Yeah,
blew my brain wide open.
Yeah, my wife and I just actually watched that the other day. Love it.
And that does hold up.
Absolutely holds up. Yeah. All right, Adam, we are running out of time, so it is time for our final push. And this is where I ask you to reach through the microphone, grab the shoulder of someone that you have already kind of inspired today and is thinking maybe I could do this too, and give them that final push into action.
Well, I may have stolen this from a book. I'm not sure. but I've used it a couple times. And whenever someone emails me off like LinkedIn or even just finds me through Facebook or whatever and says, oh, I want to do this, or how can I do, be a screenwriter, I say the following thing, and it really, like, it's a very good, like, litmus test, and I think works and whatever, which is, like, if you're thinking about doing anything else, go do that. But if this is the only thing you think about and it, like, consumes you and it haunts you and you want to write TV, you want to write movies, you want to tell stories for a global audience on a screen of some kind, whether it's an iPhone, iPad, Android, or, TV or movies, then, give it a shot and come on out. And, the bus makes drop-off every hour. So
just hop on one of those buses.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was great. Thank you very much.
Of course. And you can find Adam on Twitter. It's nothing_2_gain, GAIN. And you can also check out that new collection of one-act plays called Fire Sale on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everything else. We will put the links in the show notes page again at yourcreativepush.com/Adam Gaines. Adam, thank you again, brother.
Thank you.
Big thank you to Adam for coming on the show and giving us this like unique peek into, this world of screenwriting, of what it's like to try to make it in Hollywood. And I just love his attitude of just taking matters into his own hands and not only releasing his own content into the world in a different and unique way, but doing it for free. I think you not only get a lot more eyes on your work that wouldn't normally have seen it, but you can also use those new eyes as, a new audience that, as he said, is a good tool to have when you want to be granted a different opportunity, when you can say, hey, there's a lot of people that pay attention to my work. So by giving me this opportunity, you're also opening it up to a guaranteed kind of new audience. And not only that, just being able to connect with people in the business, and rather than having your work kind of sit in a closet or sit in your desk drawer, you can actually have it working for people. And it's just kind of a matter of, going and getting things done on your own. And not waiting for an opportunity to fall in your lap. It's making your own opportunities, and I really respect that about him. Just wanted to quickly say thank you to Robert Mallon, who gave us 5 stars on iTunes and said, it's all about creativity, and if you want to know how to improve yours, you need to listen to every episode of Your Creative Push. Creativity can be developed, and this podcast gives you unique ideas on how to do it. Great job. Billy F. 83 from the United Kingdom said, inspiring and a ton of content. Great job. So much to dig into, and keep up the great work. Mr. 12556 said, really enjoyed listening to this podcast and looking forward to future shows. And Reed Stiles said, tons of valued nuggets here. Recommended to me by a friend. I listened through episode 11, Don't Let Success Hold You Back, and decided to take a dive into episodes 16 and 17. As someone that has creative ideas but doesn't necessarily have an outlet, I'm finding these stories fascinating. There's a lot of value that can be quickly grabbed or analyzed by each episode. Easy decision to sub, aka subscribe. So thank you so much for those iTunes ratings and reviews. They have helped to catapult this show in a way that I can really not even imagine, and I can't thank you enough for helping me to do that and to get people inspired. On tomorrow's show, we have Adana Care.
Even though I always knew what I wanted to draw, I needed permission from somebody that I trusted and looked up to say that's okay. But then after a certain point, when I started drawing really big, that permission wasn't from somebody else that I was looking for. It was just from myself.
Adana joins us to talk about her awesome art, which is these giant pencil drawings that are just huge, and just huge in the amount of time that it takes her to complete them as well. And they're mostly of animals, and she comes on the show to kind of tell us all about what the animals represent and how she gets through these large-scale pieces and ideas. And it's really an inspiring conversation that I definitely think you will dig. So make sure you check it out tomorrow. Hopefully today you were inspired enough to go and get your own work done, whatever that work may be. So use the energy that you're feeling right now from the show and take that into your work and get moving on it. Don't let up. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you tomorrow for another push if you need it. Have a great and productive day, and I will catch you tomorrow.